Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope this podcast finds you well, and thank you for tuning in today. And if you had listened to my last episode, you'll know that I spoke about my sacred pause and how that season has now come to an end. I shared how I stepped away from creating, teaching, and showing up in the way I normally would, and instead devoting myself to going deeper into my own healing, embodiment, and the Tao Tantric Arts facilitators training. And since sharing that episode and since last year, I've had so many of you reaching out and asking me lots of questions, lots of juicy, juicy questions. And yeah, I suppose I needed the time to integrate what exactly was the Tao Tantric Arts and what is Tantra and what is Taoism and what do I do now with all of this training and how does it change or enhance my work. So yeah, I'm here to answer all of those questions today. And I didn't just want them to be textbook answers or something that you can just Google. I really wanted these answers to be a lived and embodied experience of how I see Tantra, Taoism, and how my work has changed and how I support my clients differently with all of this new awareness and all of this new knowledge and how I've woven and integrated it into what I already do. So let's dive right in. Um, and the truth is, Taoism and Tantra have been around for thousands of years. And like all ancient spiritual practices, they have a way of becoming trendy and popular. And it's great because, these practices and these teachings are so rich and potent. And when done correctly and with the right intention and the right guidance, they are life changing, absolutely life changing. So I'm so happy to see like Qigong and Zen practices and TMC all on the rise because, especially for women and women's health and well-being, these practices are extremely supportive and so accessible. Like my teacher Shashi says, Taoism the concept of it can be understood in a day, but you'll never master or learn it all in a lifetime, which is fascinating. It's just so rich and so deep and so complex. I remember learning it in the beginning. I was like, oh God, how will I ever grasp this? And how will I ever teach this? And how will I ever share this? And it really is only through bringing it into your own life bit by bit and digesting it and living it does it truly become embodied and second nature and just like breathing. It's just something you do rather than something that you have to tick off your to-do list, basically. So if you know me and if you know my work over the last few years, it has been predominantly about yoga, goddess retreats, the divine feminine, Reiki, creating community, and it is still they are still the cornerstones of what I do and my business. But I feel like I've added so much more depth and richness and integrity and structure to bring my existing clients, who have been with me and grown with me and journeyed with me for the last 10 years, to bring them to another level or place within themselves through these practices, but also meeting new clients with new challenges to places where they need to go. And this was a big thing for me, why I stepped into this niche, is because I was seeing so many women coming with huge amount of traumas and struggles. And I was beginning to notice a pattern. And the pattern was a lot to do with fertility issues, navigating endometriosis and painful cycles, miscarriages, grief, and recovering from traumatic birth experiences. And so many women are just absolutely exhausted, burnt out, and running on empty. And, yoga classes are great and meditation, but I just felt like something more was needed. And I really wanted to get to the root. I really wanted to get the answers to why this was happening to women and why Western medicine were just giving them a pill and not really giving them answers, which is so frustrating. With all of the technology and research, it's like there is so little about women's health. It's still a mystery to Western medicine, a lot of it. And it really saddens and maddens me that there isn't more that can be done, because through the work that I've seen in the East and through Taoism and Tantra, a lot of this can be rectified very easily if we just give ourselves the time and space to open up to it and to do the inner work and to bring these practices into our days. And this huge sense of feeling completely disconnected from their femininity. And because they were having so much issues in the reproductive area, so much trauma from the medical side of things, that they just completely disassociated. And disassociation is when we leave the body. And disassociation happens when it's so painful and so uncomfortable to be in our own bodies that we experience life in this outer body way, so that we can disassociate from the pain and suffering and just live from the neck up. And while that can be conducive in the short term, long term, it just causes more and more numbness, more and more disconnect, more and more loss of self. Again, which is so sad. And the longer we let that disassociation be the norm, the more challenging it is to get back into the body. And that's what I love about Tantra and Taoism, is that they see the body as the sacred vessel in which we experience life, and to not disregard the body, because in many spiritual practices and lineages, they say you are not the body and you are not the mind, which, yes, there is some truth in that, and I can see that point of view, but it's like, it's only through the body that we get to taste a delicious croissant, or through the eyes that we get to see a beautiful sunset, or crystal clear waters, or through touch that we get to feel another being and experience love and relationships. So the body is very important, and if we deny or transcend or disassociate from the body, we're cutting off from this human experience. So seeing the body as a sacred vessel and seeing the body as the vehicle in which your soul can have this human experience is life-changing. So how can we make it the most beautiful and peaceful environment as possible? And that's why I love the practices of Taoism and Tantra, because they're all about embodiment. So when we lose touch with our purpose and our body, all of that sense of joy, fun, sensuality, sexuality, that all goes out the window, because they're the first things to go, and we begin to just live life in autopilot. We get up, we go to work, we finish work, we have the dinner, and we go to bed, and then we might do something on the weekend, and we rinse and repeat that for decades, until one day we wake up and we're like, what am I doing with my life, or what have I done with my life? So we're never truly dropping into the depths of our being and asking those questions like, am I happy? What's going on beneath the skin? What am I feeling? What am I noticing? And I see this when I do retreats and workshops and even classes, when I invite people into their inner sanctum, their inner selves. It's like, wow, I never knew this existed. And it's their own inner world that they have no idea of how to access, or maybe 40 years old or 50 years old, getting to know themselves. So I'm not bashing doctors or Western medicine or specialists or anything like that. Like, thank God we have them, and thank God, they spent a big chunk of their life studying and being there. Like, please don't think that I'm denying their work, or in any way, shape, or form. I think they're incredible and so needed. But how can we bridge science and spirituality, and how can we weave these two together to get a greater understanding of healing and getting to the root cause, and creating protocols that can support our unmet needs, and to help the individual become their own healer, and not necessarily another diagnosis, but using the information of the current situation as a guide. Okay, this is where my attention is needed, or this is the parts of me that I have been denying or not tending to. And there's so much wisdom in that. There's so much wisdom in looking into those parts of the body in which we are holding pain, or there's a charge or an emotion, and asking the question, what are you trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? And seeing our emotions as energy in motion. And, our body doesn't speak English. Our body speaks through sensation, and it quietly knocks on the door and we don't answer. And then it continues to knock and knock and knock for years, weeks, months and years, until finally, it's breaking down the door, and then oftentimes it's too late. So that's why, creating this inner relationship and this direct line to our body and to our sensations and to our nervous systems, that it is crucial for us to live a more holistic and happy life. And I've always been intrigued by womb work and shadow work and embodiment. So I suppose that's what really led me to seeking out the Tao Tantric Arts, because it had everything that I had been looking for over a decade, that encompassed movement, breath, sound, ancient wisdom, more modern ways of looking at things from a Western perspective, that, for those who don't have hours to spend in a monastery or sitting on top of the Himalayas, it's like, how can we bring it down to earth and make it more accessible? So I found Mantak Chia's work. He is the one who brought Taoism to the West back in the 80s or 70s. And I tried to get to his training in Thailand, and it just never happened. And thank God it didn't, because then in 2024, I found my teachers, Minka and Shashi, who had trained under him and who had developed the Tao Tantric Arts to be more feminine focused. And it's just fantastic what they've created. And this is where people often ask the questions. It's like, well, what is Tantra and Taoism? Because oftentimes when you hear the word Tantra, people think it's about sex. And it's not. It's so much more than that. And yes, sexual energy is the most powerful energy. It's how we all got here. It was how we are all made. And while Tantra is about life force energy, which is sexual energy, it is a spiritual path in which it teaches us that life is sacred, and how can we, yes, experience more pleasure, experience more joy, experience more happiness, experience more expansion, experience more abundance through refining our sexual energy, rather than it just being in use for reproduction. How can we use it for healing, and how can we use it for creating the life that we desire? And when we start to look at energy like that, it really begins to change your whole perspective. But this energy is so powerful and so misused that it makes us very vulnerable, and it can make us very afraid. Afraid of being manipulated, afraid of being misled. And that's why becoming sovereign, becoming this sovereign being and being able to harness your own energy and cultivate your own energy has been absolutely life-changing for me and for my clients as well from sharing these practices. Like I said in the beginning, Tantra teaches us to be fully embodied rather than constantly trying to transcend the body. And it's about bringing spirituality and what is not tangible into the body and into the tangible, and being that bridge, that vessel between both. And what happens is we begin to become more present, become more awakened, and to really begin to feel. And so many of us, including myself, are so afraid to feel. We're afraid to feel sad. We're afraid to cry. We're afraid to be too ecstatic or be too happy. And when we remember that beneath all of this conditioning, that we are pure love and joy and happiness, just like a child. And Tantra really begins to show you that childlike innocence and wonder and awe when you begin to let go of the conditioning. And that's the biggest takeaway for me with studying Tantra. It's that it's more about unlearning all of the crap that I have been told and patterns that I've developed and programs that I've taken on from society, from religion, from growing up in Ireland. Like, there's so much suppression around our sensuality and sexuality that it really has kept us suppressed and kept us small and kept us afraid and seeing it as a bad thing rather than seeing it as a birthright. So Tantra has definitely become more of a pathway back to what is true for me and what is true for how I want to live my life and how I can bring forth my creativity, sensuality, and trust myself. Because, you know, when your head is saying one thing and your body's saying another, and there's this separation, and this takes you out of that innate wisdom that is within you. So bringing the head, the heart, and the body back into alignment really begins to create that beautiful flow and that bridge between heaven and earth. So then we have Taoism, and Taoism, spelled Taoism, is an ancient Chinese philosophy, and it's all based on living in harmony with nature and the flow of life. And the simplest translation of the Tao means the way, and it means the way of nature, the way a river flows and seasons change, and moving as effortlessly through cycles as possible. So I always use the analogy, like, you know, it's summertime now, but the leaves aren't trying to fall off the trees and just get autumn out of the way as quickly as possible. It's just moving along at the pace of nature and as it's supposed to move, rather than trying to be something it's not. And when we live in that natural flow of life, everything is easier. Yes, of course, life is going to have challenges, and there's going to be storms, and there's going to be dark nights of the soul, and there's going to be unexpected plot twists. But one thing I love about Taoism is that it teaches us to understand life force energy, which they call Qi, and how to cultivate it and conserve it and strengthen it. So that we look within ourselves rather than looking outside of ourselves for strength or for purpose or for approval. And this, I suppose, feels really relevant, especially to women, because this is how we end up in depletion. If we're constantly doing, producing, striving, and giving, it can make us feel and be very burnt out because we're burning the candles at both ends. And when we do that, it's all this energy output, but there's very little energy going in. So we're overspending our energy. And this is where a lot of the root cause of women's health issues are, because if you don't have a good conservation or storage of chi, how are you supposed to grow a human being? How are you supposed to build the life that you desire? How is your body supposed to function optimally if you have no internal energy or storage? So running on false energies such as, you know, caffeine or, you know, synthetic supplements and things like that, and then eventually ending up on medication, it's just causing more and more emptiness and more false energy. And it's just a vicious cycle that unfortunately so many women get into and wonder why they're struggling to conceive, wondering why they have to work so hard to get what they want and not even get the results that they're putting in a high amount of effort for. And nobody teaches us how to cultivate and nourish our energies. You know, if you're from Ireland, the old way is like, oh, put everyone else and their needs in front of you, and then whatever's left, then focus on yourself. And thankfully that is beginning to turn with the newer generation and perspective, because like we couldn't keep going the way we were going. And that's why I really love Taoism and Tantra woven together, because Tantra awakens our energy and Taoism teaches us how to cultivate and sustain the energy. And both of them honor the body as a sacred vessel and a way in which we can live in harmony and expansion and remain open but also grounded. And these two pathways or lineages really help women, especially, to get in touch with their bodies and their energy and themselves. And the more that I begin to study and experience these teachings in my own life, I'm like, why did it take me so long to get here? And why did it take me so long to find these? But it's like everything, all these practices and all of this perspective comes to you exactly when you need it. And it's only really when you're on your hands and knees praying for a miracle or praying for a solution that these things come. Because if we're not being pushed to our edge or outside of our comfort zone or to our wits' end, are we really going to change? If we're too much in our comfort zone, it's like, oh, I'll do it some other time. Whereas when you're pulling your hair out and completely burnt out, it's like, okay, I'll do anything. I promise that I'll commit to change. But of course, you don't have to wait till that time either. You can start today for sure. And that's my mission, really, is to, and always has been, to empower and educate, because I want women and men to come and get support from me, but also be able to walk away saying, yeah, I got this. I can go home and do this myself. I can sustain myself. And if I do need you, I can reach back out again. And this is how we support and help each other to thrive in life, rather than just merely treading water. And that's what I see so many people doing, just trying to get from one end of the day to the next, one end of the week to the next, living for the weekend, and then, trying to get started all over again. And that's one way to live, but it's definitely not the way that I want to live. I want to see every day and feel every day as so important and to be cherished, rather than just waiting for it to be over so that I can put my head down and get some rest. Suppose whatever path that we're on, and whether we're a man or a woman, like, connecting with our bodies is so important. And I see more and more men coming to the Kundalini workshops and coming for one-to-one sessions and wanting to evolve and grow and wanting to be more connected. And, they are too feeling this pressure of constantly doing and not knowing how to switch off and not knowing how to resource themselves and to come back to that baseline or to that place of calm and ease and reassurance within themselves. So as much as I talk about women and women embodiment, like, this work can really support men, because it is that feminine energy that is healing, that is nurturing, that is resourcing. And, men also need to look at that aspect of themselves too. So yeah, I hope this has answered your burning questions of what is Tantra, what is Taoism, how it has been woven into my work. And yeah, if you've been to my workshops or retreats or events over the last year, you will have seen and feel the difference. And I suppose it's really important to always be a student and always be open to evolving and growing and bettering yourself, whether you're a facilitator or not. It's like, never stop learning, and never stop learning about the body and about energy, because being aware of these things and being aware of how you can support and resource yourself is so important. Because, like I said, if not, you leave yourself very susceptible to manipulation and to outsourcing your power. And as we evolve as a society, and a lot of false information being out there and too much information being out there, knowing how to be discerning and knowing what feels true to you only comes from being in the body. Because you will feel open and receptive to it, or you'll feel closed and be like, okay, why am I not saying yes to this, or why am I feeling resistance to this? So being able to figure out those bodily signals is like learning a new language if you've been disconnected from your body for some time. So if you've been feeling burnt out or lost or navigating grief or searching for your purpose, know that for every problem there is a solution. Absolutely. Like, there's a never ending list of solutions to how you're feeling or what you're being challenged or struggling with at the moment. So don't stew or sit in it for too long. Reach out to those who are doing what you want to do, or who are living the life of your dreams, or who have achieved the results and growth from where you are right now and where you want to be, because they have the roadmap. They have a way in which they got from A to B, and if they can do it, so can you, because we are all one. And I truly believe that a lot of our life struggles and how we've overcome them is not just for ourselves, but it's also to show others that there is a way through this initiation or this tunnel or this dark place that you're in. So please, please, please do reach out, make an effort, and start coming home to yourself. And that time is no better time than today, right now, in this moment, to start that change. Because I'm so glad that I left that corporate job 10 years ago and closed up everything and said, okay, I'm going to India to be a yoga teacher. And do I regret any of it? Absolutely not. Do I regret not doing it sooner? Yes. Because a lot of us are happy, well, not even happy, but more content to be in the familiar hell than reach for the unknown heaven. And there's so much potential and energy and opportunities if you just reach a little bit further than you think you can reach, and just see what happens. Because I would much prefer to fail and know, rather than stay the same and wonder what could have been. And Taoism, Tantra, yoga, meditation, all of these things are different pathways in which they can help give you more clarity, not what's out there, but what's already within you. So if you've made it to this part, I really, really appreciate you being here, for listening, for tuning in. I hope that it has shed some light on things that you weren't aware of, or turned on some light bulbs, or sparked some interest in these different modalities, teachings, practices, lineages. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. If anything resonated, or if you have any more questions or more podcast ideas, please do send them my way. But I'm sending you so much love, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.